If you somehow only know Jane Eyre as the one with the governess in the creepy house, here's the short version. Jane grows up unwanted, survives a brutal school, falls in love with her employer, learns he's already married, runs, nearly collapses, refuses a second life that would erase her, and returns only when she can choose love without losing herself. Charlotte Brontë published a novel in 1847 as Jane Eyre, an autobiography, under the name Currer Bell, and from the start, readers felt the unusual force of Jane's first-person voice. And maybe that is the reason the book still feels so sharp. It may look like a romance. It may be shelved like a romance. A lot of people may even remember it mainly as a romance. But what seems to give it its staying power is something harder to name. Because Jane Eyre may not really be about finding love, so much as learning what must be refused before love can mean anything at all. That is what keeps pulling me back to it. Lately, in my own search for economic independence, I keep running into some version of the same advice. Trust the right offer, believe the right person, show confidence in someone else's promise. Sometimes that advice is practical. Sometimes it even sounds wise. But a book like Jane Eyre makes me hear the danger inside that language a little more clearly. Not every promise is a path forward. Some promises are just dependent on better branding. Jane seems to understand that before she can fully explain it. From the beginning, her life is shaped by people who expect her to accept arrangements they deem good enough for her. At Gateshead, she is told where she belongs. At Lowood, she is told what suffering should make of her. By the time she reaches Thornfield, she has already spent years living inside systems that try to make her smaller. So when Rochester appears, it is not only that he is compelling, it is that he feels interrupted. For once, someone notices her mind. For once, someone speaks to her as if she actually exists. That kind of recognition can feel dangerously close to salvation. Before Thornfield, though, Brontë does something important. She trains Jane in the difference between power and moral authority. Gateshead is where Jane learns that adults can call cruelty discipline. The Red Room is terrifying, but it also feels like an early lesson in what happens when fear gets dressed up as order. Then Lowood deepens that lesson. Brocklehurst humiliates girls under the language of Christian virtue, and that section carries extra force, because Lowood is widely understood to have drawn on Charlotte Bronté's experience at Cowan Bridge, where harsh discipline and deprivation shaped her childhood. Brontë later framed the novel's moral center with the line, "Conventionality is not morality. Self-righteousness is not religion." That line matters. Without it, Jane can get flattened into the moral heroine, which is not quite right. She is not admirable because she obeys rules more neatly than everyone else. If anything, Brontë seems much more interested in showing how hard it is to tell the difference between real principle and false virtue when both are speaking in the language of duty. Which is why Rochester is such a good test. A weaker novel might have made him obviously bad or obviously safe. Brontë does neither. Rochester can be manipulative, evasive, and selfish. He can also be magnetic, vulnerable, and startlingly alive in Jane's presence. The problem is not that Jane is foolish for loving him. On the contrary, the novel makes that love feel understandable enough that his offer becomes a serious moral temptation rather than a theatrical plot twist. Britannica notes that the book's narrator is a thinking, feeling woman, caught between natural desire and social conditions, and that this tension is doing a lot of work here. What Rochester offers Jane is not just passion. He offers recognition. He offers intensity, the end of isolation. And then, attached to all of that, he offers a lie. That attachment is the whole point. A lot of stories would treat love as the thing that justifies everything else. Jane Eyre seems more suspicious than that. Rochester's argument, if you strip it down, is that what he and Jane feel is so deep, so rare, so exceptional, that the moral facts around them should somehow become secondary. And that kind of argument may be familiar far beyond the novel. Sometimes it appears in romance, sometimes in business, or the language of opportunity. Just trust me, this will work out. The arrangement is complicated, yes, but your belief is part of what makes it possible. That is partly why Jane's refusal hits as hard as it does. She does not reject Rochester because she feels nothing. She rejects him because she feels too much to pretend the terms do not matter. Her turning point may be the line, "I care for myself." It is one of the plainest lines in the novel, and maybe one of the most devastating. It doesn't sound ornamental. It doesn't sound lofty. It sounds like someone reaching for the one thing she cannot afford to hand over, her own moral center. That is where I start thinking about Kafka. In The Penal Colony by Franz Kafka, the law is grotesquely external. It is mechanical, punitive, and written onto the body by a machine. Britannica describes the novella as an allegorical fantasy about law and punishment. And one of the things that makes it so disturbing is the officer's almost religious devotion to a system that has stopped justifying itself. Jane Eyre feels very different on the surface, but the contrast may be useful. Kafka gives us authority as inscription. Brontë gives us authority as persuasion. In Kafka, judgment is imposed from outside. In Brontë, the danger is often that Jane will be talked into consenting to what would diminish her. That is why Rochester matters, but not only Rochester. Because once Jane escapes the obvious temptation, the novel does something even better. It gives her St. John Rivers. And St. John may be the colder, cleaner, more respectable threat. Rochester asks her to bend the principle for love. St. John asks her to bend herself for principle. At first glance, he can seem like the corrective. He is serious, whereas Rochester is reckless. Ordered where Rochester is chaotic. Religious where Rochester is morally compromised. But the longer he speaks, the clearer it becomes that what he wants from Jane is not quite Jane. He wants her strength, her stamina, her obedience, her ability to disappear into his mission. What he offers may be admired from the outside. It may even look noble. Still, it would cost her just as surely. That, to me, is where the novel becomes much more than a love story. Because it is one thing to refuse obvious wrongdoing. It is another thing entirely to refuse a form of goodness that would hollow you out. And perhaps that is one of Bronte's hardest insights. Self-betrayal does not always arrive looking sinful. Sometimes it comes dressed as purpose. Sometimes it sounds like service. Sometimes it is praised as discipline. Sometimes it is exactly the life that other people would call admirable for you. Which brings me back to that personal frame. When you are trying to build a life with some actual independence in it, people often tell you that trust is part of the process. Believe the mentor. Believe the investor. Believe the partner. Believe the employer. Believe the person who says the opportunity is real, the security is coming, and the arrangement is fair. And sometimes, yes, that is true. But Jane Eyre seems interested in another question. What if the price of trusting the promise is letting someone else define the terms of your worth? Rochester offers belonging under false terms. St. John offers purpose under dead terms. Neither one is enough. That is why the ending works as well as it does. Jane does return to Rochester, but not as the woman who first loved him. By then, she has money, family, and a different relation to power. Britannica notes that Jane's story is one of a woman struggling with desire and social conditions while remaining true to principle. And that is exactly why the ending lands. She comes back able to choose, not cornered into choosing. That does not make the ending innocent. Bertha Mason remains the novel's deepest wound, and critics have long argued that Jane's inheritance from Madeira complicates the ending through its colonial shadow. So the final harmony is real, but it is not clean. There is moral residue left in the story, and maybe that is part of why it continues to provoke serious readings, rather than just sentimental affection. Still, reader, I Married Him may only work because of everything that came before it, because she would not become Rochester's exception, because she would not become St. John's instrument. The final yes has been earned by a whole series of refusals. Maybe that is the hidden engine of the novel.
Not romance alone, not morality alone. Something narrower, stranger, and more useful than either.
A woman keeps getting offered forms of safety, love, meaning, and advancement. Each offer contains a trap. Each one asks for trust. Each one asks her, in one way or another, to hand over the right to define herself. And the novel keeps asking whether survival might depend on noticing the trap before you start calling it destiny. That may be why Jane Eyre still feels modern. Not because the setting is modern, not because the social rules are, but because the pressure is. The pressure to be grateful, the pressure to be chosen, to believe the person making the promise, to call a compromise maturity, maybe rename self-loss as love, or duty, or opportunity. Jane resists all of that. Not perfectly, not painlessly, and not without longing. But she resists it enough that when love finally arrives at the end, it does not have to be purchased with her disappearance. And maybe that is the book's deepest pleasure. Not that Jane finds a man, not even that she finds independence in the narrow economic sense. It is that she keeps enough of herself intact to have freedom, love, and dignity meet together.